play flowers with you, just sit around, eat bonbons, drink coffee. The fun part of my life, or at least we pretend that that's the fun part. Well, it is the fun part, but we pretend that's what I'm doing. So I guess I have been doing a few more things today than just sitting around eating bonbons, but I like that illusion that all I do is drink coffee and eat bonbons. I think, wouldn't that be a great life? I think, sign me up. But instead, yeah, I worked on technology, I worked on accounting, I took out the recycling, I cleaned some flowers. Sound like your day? Yeah, I know. But let's have the fantasy of bonbons and coffee. That's way more fun, way more fun, and it's Wednesday, so it's grand. Let's start with some housekeeping. You know, you've heard this. If you're on your phone, turn it sideways. That way the picture's bigger. If you want it to be comment-free, so that you've got the full picture and no comments in the way, give it a swipe. That puts it in silent mode. Swipe it back, then you can have it. If you're on your computer, go full screen. If you're watching at work, and it's sitting down below and you've got your earbuds in, but nobody's supposed to know you're watching, we'll try to make a point and say, oh, what do you think? And that way you can pick it up and look at it and go, oh yeah, I like that. So just however you're here, pay attention, let us know. We have a full house today. It's very exciting. I'm so thrilled to say. We have everybody here. So we've got Teacher Annie and Teacher Michelle. They'll be watching on YouTube and Facebook and looking for your comments and verbalizing them so that we can answer. Then we have Creative Director Ricky keeping us live, keeping us on schedule, paying attention. And she's also going to be watching for your comments and such. So if you have anything to say, type it in there. Virtually, Susie Caledonia. Caledonia is on Facebook. Susie's on YouTube, and they'll be replying to you and interacting, and so you'll see their fingers typing away so fast. And then virtually we have Michael, Doug, and David. I know, I told you, it's a full house. Plus, we have a live studio audience. How cool is that? So the class, you know, when I always say, okay, if you hear giggling on the other side of the wall, it's because the class is working. But the class is actually a tad bit ahead of schedule, so we brought them in because this is going to be an excellent hour of inspiration and creativity. So we have the class with us in here. So yes, the studio is packed, and online with you all, virtually packed. So now it's your turn. Take a moment, type in there. Hi, it's Leanne. I'm from Portland. Here's my tulip. Put it all on there. Introduce yourselves, start the collaboration, get to know each other, begin the conversation. Let us know what you're having for dinner. You know the drill. Just kind of go with it. But today, a pretty great one. Today we're doing Wedding Trends 2025. And I went back and I looked at Wedding Trends 2024, and guess what? It was Teacher Jeri. And so Wedding Trends 2025, we have Teacher Jeri back. But it's a fun one. You can see we've got beautiful flowers up here, lots of fun things to talk about, and then we'll answer any questions that you have, and then actually looking forward to hearing what you see as to what's going on in trends in your area. So let's get started. Jeri, come on up. We've got to get to see you here. Yay!
Thank you for having me. I'm excited to be back.
You know, isn't it fun?
Absolutely.
Oh my gosh.
Absolutely.
And it was so funny because I looked up Wedding Trends 2024 and there you were, and we were standing here. I should have checked to see what we were wearing. We might be wearing the same thing for all I know.
Well, probably at least part of it is exactly the same, for sure, right?
I love it. So thank you for jumping in today. I know you were out gathering flowers and getting your
Early
things
this morning,
together.
I know, I was off to the side here doing some yawning, so sorry if that happens. It's
What
not
time?
because I don't want to be here,
I
though.
know. So what time did you start this morning?
You know what, not super early. We're kind of in the off season, and so I think I made it to market by 6:37 this morning, so.
6:37 is late, which is true.
It's funny when you're like, you know, it's 7 o'clock and you're like, I'm running late.
Because I've seen you there at like 5:30.
Well, yeah, 5:30, early bird gets the worm, right? So the best stuff, well, especially in the summer when all the growers bring all the like little, you know, they just have a little bit of it. Gotta be there early.
And you gotta be there to get the right stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, so 7 o'clock is late for you.
I know, it was a little sleeping in, but it was nice, it was nice.
But yeah, I wasn't gonna point out that I noticed you yawning when we were having a conversation. Am I boring you?
You're not. But you're talking about trends 2024, and it's interesting, like what has changed and what hasn't changed, and like you already mentioned, but I'd love to hear what's going on in like different areas, different parts of the world.
Because we have people that do so many weddings and all over the world, and so it's kind of fun. So if you would take a moment and just let us know what you're seeing in weddings in your area so that we can all learn from each other. It's an excellent opportunity. So now Jeri is from Bella Bloom Florals, and you guys, if you could put her website up there so that everybody can take a look at that later. But Bella Bloom Florals, and you've been doing that, what, 15-ish years now? 14?
Let's see. How old are my kids? Yeah. So I'm 14 full-time.
14 full-time.
Yeah. I worked in the wedding world before that, but it pays the bills for the last 14 years, mostly. There's a couple hard years in there. 2020.
Oh my gosh, let's not even go
yeah,
there.
Yeah, we're away from that.
That's right.
Moved away.
So 14 years of paying your bills with your business. That's
Yeah.
pretty exciting. Yeah. And I know that 2011, I had to look this up.
Oh my goodness, 2011, okay.
You joined us for the Wedding Floral Specialist class.
Yes.
And you were amazing. It was so exciting. And so we do advanced wedding workshops, and we have one in the classroom that we don't offer anymore, so don't even go there, but it's the Wedding Floral Specialist. And then we found that it was too much, it was too big, it was too complicated, so we divided it out and moved it to online. And so if you look at the advanced wedding workshops, you'll see flowers to wear, bouquets to carry, ceremony flowers, but that's the new version. But it was 2011 that you joined us for that. And then it's been, what, 9 years ago you started teaching with us?
That's when I probably figured out how much I love like giving back to the floral community too. So it's just so fun to like help other people feel super creative and good about what they're doing. And
you do that
it's an amazing thing you get to do all the time. So
and you're doing good.
Thank you.
So today, I know you're going to make us a bouquet. What are you seeing flower-wise in the bouquets?
Trends? I feel like there is a lot of, so I looked at 2024 last year too in my notes. I was like, man, there's so much overlap. Like where are the differences? And I think there's a lot of the same, right? Some light, delicate, airy bouquets. Smaller is definitely still a trend. It was last year. I think the difference that we're seeing in bouquets, or like we were talking about the word that's coming up is this idea of like deconstructed. So, and it's not so much, I mean, people are using that as a buzzword, but it's not, I mean, we know as florists, it's not really deconstructed. It's not like just loose blooms. So the idea that it's just like just
deconstructing?
Not like how we used to use that term.
Okay,
no,
so it's
sure.
an updated version.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I think it just means like simpler. I think we're also seeing the word like monobotanical, so it kind of goes along hand in hand. But I think the difference between monobotanical and this idea of deconstructed is that it's like, oh, I just picked this, right? Like, well, there was no work involved, So
DIY by way of my florist.
Yes, exactly. Like, a little undone maybe, perhaps.
Okay.
So, and then also, just interesting blooms. Like, that was already a thing last year, right? When we were seeing like the anthurium and all the amaranthus, but to that we're adding calla lilies, and so it's just all these architectural blooms. I think that's super fun.
So the anthurium is one that I'm seeing over and over and over again, and I see you brought that in as well. We can put it up here on the close-up camera so people can see the great coloration. That's one thing I'm noticing is far more interesting coloration. It's
In
not
the
the
anthurium.
traditional red anthurium.
Yeah, so many varieties when you're looking through, like, I've been doing some online flower shopping, but lots and lots of options if you can get them into your market.
Grand. Okay. Well, what are you going to dazzle us with?
Okay, so I'm going to start with, so even though all of these like anthurium and deconstructed and all that, I'm still not seeing in my area, so I'm interested. You guys have to, tell me, either validate or let me know what's happening in your area. But still not seeing brides going completely kind of like wild and super asymmetrical with their bouquets. I have more clients doing that this year than ever, but still having a lot of brides that are wanting something that feels like a little bit more classic and traditional, but with like that dancey kind of updated vibe. So that's what we're going to start with today.
Okay. It
So,
sounds like a romantic look.
yeah, absolutely, absolutely. Well, that reminds me, you guys, I have all sorts of notes, but they're not all up here. So, but definitely have some kind of overarching like trends that I think are you're just seeing these buzzwords, over and over and over. I better have more coffee, Leanne. I'm falling apart up here. Yeah, I'll stick with my tea, but yeah. Anyway, don't let me forget to share all these things.
Okay, I know you have so much information.
know.
So while you're getting your armature,
Yeah.
I'll just say,
Yeah.
yes, I come up and I'm like, hi, how are you? It's fun to be here. And she comes to me, okay, now I got my nose somewhere under, which is why we love Jeri, because she keeps everything perfect.
Oh gosh, perfect. That's not a thing. That's not a thing. But so we've been seeing the Armature Bouquet happening for a while, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I think that it started out with this way to like allow us to make big greenery bouquets and fun shapes and really control that. But now I think the armatures have gotten so much smaller. You don't want a big armature. I think right now because these bouquets don't have a lot of greenery, if any, right? And we just want the flowers to dance, so you really need a tiny, tiny, tiny armature, or you're gonna have way too much to hide and it's gonna get too heavy visually. So I've just taken a piece of chicken wire that floral net, that teacher Michelle cut for me. And I've turned it into a little tube, and I'm only going to use part of this because this is about the size I would use for 3 of these bouquets. So I'm just gonna
So
cut
Teacher
a
Michelle, you cut that too big.
No,
Actually, it's a leftover of
it's just a
Jeri's
scrap.
from the
It's
last
just a
class,
scrap.
so it's good.
Okay, so students pay attention, because you're doing this next week, I think. Is it next week or the week? I don't know, it's coming up. So
Armature
don't make
bouquets.
one too big.
Don't make your armature too big. Yeah, whatever, and like this is the foundation for this bouquet, and so we want to make sure that it makes sense for like the end goal of what we want to make. So I just cut that. I'm just turning the cut ends over on themselves to hold it together. This underpinning, this little structure we're putting under here, doesn't have to be perfectly beautiful. No one will see it at the end of the day. So there's no rules. You're just gonna smush it to get it to whatever you want it to be.
Is smoosh a technical term?
Yeah, I think it's in the new book.
Ah.
Smush. But what you do want it to do is be strong enough that you can put some pressure on it and it's not going to fold into itself. And then we also want to keep that center empty so that we can run our students through
Pull it
there.
up to the,
Oh,
I
man.
know, the close-up camera. Neither of us are very good at this, but.
I made it. Yeah.
Yay!
Ricky's giving me a thumbs up. She's like, maybe you'll figure this out. But, yeah, so it's just a really like big golf ball size. I don't know, tangerine. This is a tangerine size.
I was gonna say, it looks like a tangerine-ish. Okay.
And then,
So that's even smaller, because when I worked with them, I have gone more to a baseball size, so I need to get even smaller too.
it just depends on what your end goal is, right?
Well, pretty.
Well, yeah, that's not a beholder, but lots of options as far as that goes. And then I feel like there's really this push to like a lack of greenery or less greenery or no greenery in this kind of style of bouquet this season. But I like to use a little bit just at the base to start my handle. So will you hand me a little bit of this parvifolia? And I specifically bought this parvo because it was locally grown, and that's another trend, right, is buying local and sustainable, and I know that that's not possible in everything that we do, and I don't know if that would just make sense, right, across the board, like we wouldn't have very many flowers in Oregon this time of year if everything was local.
We would have nothing.
But as far as weddings go, lots of talk and chatter amongst couples about wanting to make sure that their wedding is sustainable as possible. I think when it comes right down to it, not a lot of weddings are not. There's a lot of waste. I don't want to go that big of a piece, but but I think that conversation is coming up to the table. So when you're talking about trends and wanting to, market different things for your business, I think that's something you want to keep in the conversation.
I think it is much more of an awareness now than we have ever had, and I think it's going to continue to grow, so.
Oh, plenty.
So stop.
I'm going big with this, but.
Well, and I know, and you said not very much
I know.
foliage, and then I
No,
put out a
no.
bush.
And that's okay, because I'll just start adding it in here and talking and all the things. But that brings up, and I mean, I know this is like such a touchy subject, but the whole idea of foam-free designs and all of that. So I still don't know how we can do all the things we do as a wedding florist with no foam at all. Now, that's probably a super controversial comment that I just made, but so but I think that you're going to have more and more couples asking for foam-free design. So if you believe in that, or you don't believe in that, or whatever your stance is on that, I would choose to have lots of different ways in your mental toolbox and make sure that you know all the ways.
Learning.
Yeah, absolutely.
Definitely.
Yeah, don't be stagnant. So I'm just weaving a little bit of greenery through the sides of this armature. Oops! Oh, flying greenery, throwing it around. So I'm going in from the side, really at an angle, and bringing it down through my binding point, and just kind of levering this greenery up against my armature. I think that's always like the tricky part for people, is that's really just levered in there. And this parvo is not very strong, so I'm having to do a little finagling here, but it's all gonna work out.
So while you are doing that, Michelle, Annie, Ricky, anything going on out there that we should be aware of?
Well, Connie, when you asked about trends that they were seeing locally, she commented that last year her daughter's bouquet was loosey-goosey, to quote her,
Yeah.
and was mostly wildflowers, some
Yeah.
Texas bluebonnets, which of course are lupin for us, rosemary and herbs, but it was
Cute.
very bouncy.
Yeah. So open and dancey and delicate. I think those are, but also it kind of plays into the idea of it being just picked, right? And a little uncomposed and.
Well, and it sounds like that mixture could lead to some nice fragrance, sort of an herbally look, which would be wonderful too. And I think people like fragrance in their flowers. They think it's more real.
Yeah, well, absolutely. And I also think it plays into this idea of like experiential flowers, or you know, I think a lot of couples are thinking about that. Maybe the experience for themselves or the experience for their guests. Like, is it a wow moment? Does it have a smell? Can they interact with it? That type of thing. I think that's definitely a big trend right now.
So we will point out that she is taping her bouquet with the special 1-inch tape that we hide, because this is Teacher Jeri's tape.
That's my favorite. And I also tape a lot. That's just, we all have our weird little habits, but taping a lot is one of mine.
That is your thing.
So this is going to be, oh, Ricky, let's see if I can do it. Oh, look at that. So this is going to be the base of this whole bouquet, just this delicate little guy here. Just a little bit of floral net and just a tiny, tiny bit of greenery to get me started. And then I'm going to go in with that stalk and give myself just a little bit of a fluffy base here. Okay, what else do you want to talk about, Leanne? Okay, so I think overall, less greenery in composed arrangements. I don't know if you guys are seeing this, but the idea of kind of, you know, there's some compactness and some asymmetry, but there's not a lot of greenery in what clients are bringing to the table this year.
I know, I think the foliage farmers are probably not very happy at the exact moment.
But still greenery, yeah, not all across the board, but still greenery in things like ceiling installations and accent greenery, things like that. Still seeing greenery in those ways.
Do you have a favorite type of greenery?
Oh gosh, just like ones that are well behaved and beautiful and in season, all the things. Yeah, I mean, we're really spoiled these days with all the local eucalyptus farms. You know, that wasn't a thing that we always had access to in Oregon, so that's kind of new. And I think I feel so spoiled by that. You know, California florists used to be like, oh, it's a weed. And I'd be like, not to us, like, no, we can't even get that. But I think the trending greenery right now is southern smilax, and it's, you know, there's that minute that it's off crop, but otherwise the rest of the time it works so well. And yeah, and it can be, you know, put up without a water source. You don't have problems with it failing and things like that, like other vine products.
And it's lightweight.
It is lightweight,
Which is
sprawly.
nice.
You know, it's very organic, if that's what your client's going for. There's normally some, you know, trends in there, all sorts of things.
Bites and
Yeah,
stuff.
nice little bites, yeah, for sure. Look at these little cute babies. Okay,
So Teacher Annie, what you got there?
There's a couple words that Rick used that I really like.
all right.
He says casually curated.
Casually curated. I like it, Rick. Thank you.
That is great. And welcome back, Rick. He got to go to the memorial service for Jimmy Carter.
Oh, nice.
He was there, and if you go to the Tulip Bunch page, he has posted some pictures that show the mechanics of the arrangements that were being made.
Wow.
And that was very cool. And then if you Google it, the Washington Post had a very interesting article where they interviewed the florist as they were doing it, and the panic attack of it was coming to snow and such. What if my flowers don't come? I have to have flowers for the
Yeah.
president's funeral.
Yeah.
And so they were just going, okay, what are our backup plans? What are our backup plans? The flowers made it, 20 cases. And then what I found interesting, and I guess I shouldn't, but, I mean, because this sounds ageist, but the florist was 83 years old.
Oh, that's awesome.
Is that not the coolest thing
Was there
ever?
some connection, I wonder?
I'm thinking she's like the church lady,
Oh, that's cool.
you know, for the National Cathedral. I mean, everyone has a church lady, right?
Yeah.
And so she and her team, but I thought that was so cool. And she had done funerals for so many different presidents. I think it went back to Johnson maybe, that she had done flowers for. Is that not,
I feel like there's probably a lesson to be learned. Like, as a florist, she must take really good care of herself because we work hard.
We do, and here she is at 83,
Yeah.
still doing what she
Yeah,
loves.
yeah. I don't know if at 83 I can still lift buckets, but.
Well, she might have somebody else with the
Okay,
buckets for her. She
okay.
just makes pretty.
Oh, well, that works.
And drinks coffee and eats
That's the goal.
bonbons.
Okay. I can see that.
Yeah.
So thank you, Rick, for putting those pictures in, because the pictures I had seen were all finished. And so to see the mechanics and to see that they had used designer blocks with the floral netting and such, it was really great. So Teacher Michelle.
So question for you, Jeri. Diane said, did you put the stock in the armature or just around?
Oh, Diane, good eye and great question. So I think lots of times when we have this armature, right, we think that we have to build everything into it. But really, I think half of it goes into it and half of it you're just levering out, up against it. And so the mechanic keeps these a little bit separate and allows for some control. But yeah, you don't have to weave everything through it. It's easier if you don't, because then you're starting to hide your armature already. So.
And you get a little more width and angle too.
Yeah,
Okay.
true.
So great question and good call on catching us on that, because sometimes we just keep working and having too much fun and don't tell you what we're doing. So if you have not asked a question yet, get it typed in there, because Jeri is with us for another 35 minutes and you can pick her brain. And as you can see, she has a wealth of information. If you are in the wedding world and you know somebody that should be watching this, to know what's going on, tag them, and share this out. Please spread the word, make Jeri famous.
Oh my goodness.
Well, we know that you are the best Portland florist. And so, in fact,
There's a lot of pretty amazing talent in Portland.
well, we're going to
but
call
I'll take
you
it.
Portland's best.
Okay.
And there's voting going on right now. And I know that Caledonia and Susie have the link. If you would like to vote for Portland's best florist, Bella Bloom Florals, you can type that in, Bella Bloom Florals, for Portland's best florist, I know she would appreciate it. So
I would love
let's
it.
have a
That's
rally
very
of the
sweet.
Tulip Bunch. Yes. No, you got last year. You
We
won.
did win last year, yes.
And we didn't
that
even
was,
do this. We
that
were
was pretty
advertising.
exciting, yes.
I know. Leanne the Pimp.
Wow, you have a lot of hats already, sister. I don't know if that one, we're adding that. Wow. Okay, I need you. New hat. Now you're the sous chef.
Okay.
Will you grab a couple of those ranunculus? And let's see, these are amazing and just first on the market, but they are really tight. This is like a Leanne test. Can you get a wire up in any of those?
I can do my best.
Good luck. Those ones look tricky. If not, they're, you know what? That one's almost well behaved enough. We won't torture you with this one. I'm one that's.
Oh, you're gonna give me a
Yeah.
hard one.
Mine are really ornery one. So I've started with my low base. I started with a
Now I
tiny
put
bit of.
my glasses
Oh,
on.
you will, especially if you're threading that. So low tight base, this touch of greenery that will really kind of disappear by the time I'm done. And then from there, everything is just extending out so that everything is dancing. I'm not pulling anything deep in there. I think you have to know like what kind of designer you are. And I started when everything was like super tight and super composed. There was, it was all very pave. And so I have to just like force myself to pull everything out. And my trick is I just keep going up, 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 up and never put anything at the same level. Hope I end up with something airy. So that's what we're doing. Okay, any more questions, you guys? Or you want me to?
No, they're all watching me wire ranunculus.
Dennis did say that he's seen quite a trend with all white weddings, and he's in Texas, which is
Yeah.
interesting. That's a return to super formal.
Yeah, so it's interesting because there was a little bit of a, in the internet powers that be, there was a bit of a split camp on the idea of all white. Because we've been seeing a lot of all white, right? Or all white and like this idea of neutrals. And some of the powers that be, they say that white, all white is out and we're gonna see less of that. Although it's an interesting like idea because there's also this trend of kind of some vintage styling, think like candelabras, and I was talking to Leanna, I was like dresses with pearls and the vintage style cakes, and I feel like all white would work really well in that kind of design idea.
Mm-hmm.
So Dennis is going to be joining us in May. He was a graduate of the advanced course.
Okay.
And he's coming back in May for the Designing for Competition and Evaluation. He got
So
his
fun.
CFD status and is now going to be taking the PFDE testing coming up in July in Palm Springs. So he's coming in May, so it's going to be so fun to have him back. That will be grand.
We'll have to sneak in here and hang out for a minute.
I know, it's a fun class. It's one of my favorites.
And the idea of like just always learning and growing as a designer.
Well, that's his thing, because he's been a florist. Okay, Dennis, fill me in. I can't remember how many years, but I know it was a long
It's
time.
been a minute.
He's been a florist for a little bit of a time, and so he's just decided it's time to reinvent and validate all that he knows. And so I'm pretty honored to be a small part of that. Very exciting.
Let's see if I can get.
Dennis says 45 years.
45. I know I didn't want to guess because if I said wrong, then it would be wrong, but I was thinking it was a good chunk of time, many decades, so congratulations. And he's still doing what he loves, and he's doing it incredibly well. I watch his stuff and it's like, oh, yay, Dennis.
Still choosing to learn and,
Yes, expanding more. How many of these do you need?
oh, that's probably plenty.
Okay, so I can quit wiring for a little while?
Yeah.
Okay. Oh, man, I was nervous there.
Oh, package.
Oh, my God. Like, okay, let's pop the head off on camera.
Oh, well, that's real life.
It wouldn't be the first time.
That happens,
That's
right?
right. Okay. And what is your question, Michaela?
At this point, can you put anything through your little holder in the center, or is it only building now?
Yeah, you can run things through still. Are you asking
Or
if
are the
there's?
stems too tight?
No,
to put anything?
Yeah, so I think opposite of a lot of designers, keep my stems really tight in my hand. That's just how I like to design, opposed to having them splayed. But I can still run through my armature. My armature is actually like really open still in the center, so I can run through that quite a bit. I'm putting a lot to the outside, and then people I think always wonder like when it's tight and taped here, can I still get things through that? I don't need to go through it. I will hit over the top at angles.
Through the binding point.
Through the binding
so
point,
that you
yeah.
can just,
Yeah, so everything's kind of coming at a little bit of an angle or through the binding point, so I can keep running things through there.
I'm gonna scooch the center in so you guys can see, the center actually has almost a hollow area. I mean, there's blooms there, but it actually goes indented so that it's not poofy and has more room to insert in there. So, yeah, I can see if I don't know if I can show that on camera. If I give my hand and pull it across, does the netting show there at all, Ricky?
Pretty tricky.
No, we just see
Yeah.
the leaves.
Okay, because my eye spies areas in there.
Yeah, you can, like, I can kind of touch the wire, ooh, breaking flower, I can still touch the.
Now you can really get
Now I
in
can
there.
really see it, but I can still see the center in there, so I'll eventually need to kind of drop a little something in there. Yeah, that's a good question though, but yeah. And the nice thing is the armature just keeps it nice and light and, yeah, and I think a lot of normal people, they don't take wood as much as I do, but I really like it. I think it must be the fact that I'm a little bit of a squirrel and like, I'm like, okay, gotta go over here,
And then
I
you
can
shut
just
it
put it in
down?
my vase, yeah, and walk away and come back to it, or if I'm finding something, I can leave it alone and come back to it. I like that ability, so.
So Michelle, remind me, is it next week that they actually do this with the floral netting?
Yes.
Okay, so if you guys will be doing it next week. If you are in the basic course, your next opportunity would be in March. And yes, we do this in the second week of class. And I want to say it might be on Wednesday, but don't quote me on that. But yes, you do this because it's something that really takes practice. Having that little wad of netting is tricky to work around, and at first it doesn't work, and it just is a hot mess. And then all of a sudden it's like, oh, gotcha, I can do this. And then it all just works.
And it's typically with Teacher Jeri.
What? So they really love it. Okay, I have a controversial trend that I came across, and so you guys will have to everyone let me know your thoughts. But I'm hearing some like out trend is the boutonniere.
Going out.
Yeah.
No more
Yeah.
boutonnieres.
Well, I don't know. I'm still looking at a lot of boutonnieres, but apparently that's like, yeah, on the out is the boutonniere.
Well, what about that whole lapel thing where it goes like it's the jacket?
Most of my grooms don't want to be kind of that.
Adorned with so many flowers.
Yeah, adorned with so many flowers. They want to be kind of, I don't know, a
Masculine.
little bit more quiet.
Okay, so tulips, type in there, yes or no for boutonnieres, and not whether you want to do them, that's not.
I was gonna say, is that a trend like that florists are saying? Because they're like, yeah, boutonnieres are out.
Yeah, you don't want to do that.
I did have a florist friend that was like, corsages are totally out. And I was like, they are? And she's like, no, I don't want to make them. And I was like, oh, I understand. You're so smart.
So tulips, type in there, yes or no to boutonnieres in your area. We're curious, inquiring minds want to know. So Michelle, Annie, what else is going on over there?
Well, I was trying to find, somebody had mentioned a little earlier that they were seeing a lot of pocket squares instead of old school, quote unquote, pin-on boutonnieres. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think I think pocket boutonnieres are still a thing, and we're gonna see those still this season. But just as much as that's a trend, I think that we're gonna see grooms just passing on boutonnieres and deciding that that's not something they need. I think there might be a handful of motivations for that, like just in general, maybe a different appreciation of flowers, and then I think like the economics of it, like, oh, if we can just get by with like a little bit less, I don't know, but it'll be interesting to see. I would say I'm like at a 50-50 rate right now with our clients on, yeah,
Interesting.
yeah.
What was it before?
I would say I almost booked everyone with a boutonniere. Yeah, I mean, up until the last couple of years, but
I would say I have never done a wedding without boutonnieres,
yeah,
but I don't do them right now, so I would not be a good trend person.
yeah.
Which
Well,
is
they
why
were
we
like a
have
thing
you.
you had to have, right?
Yeah,
And
I mean,
now,
it's just
no,
like-
not so much.
And coordinate, and
Yeah.
we must have.
Yeah, well, that's it. So like, that's another idea though, like, kind of the weddings of the past were super coordinated and everything had to be kind of like matchy, and that's just not where we are right now, right?
No, isn't
Like,
that interesting?
No, it's
Yeah.
super fun. That comes up a lot with this idea, like, I have some notes on it, but like definitely this idea that like, even within, pieces, like they all kind of come together as in there's like some unity and they all look like they're supposed to be at the same event. But each piece isn't the same. Like there's transitions in color even within like a single piece, and feel like a couple years ago, and even last year, we were seeing kind of some like big blocking of botanicals. I think we're still seeing that, but it's like in a little bit softer, more swoopy, organic way this season. Yeah, yeah.
We had, one of our tulips had, and I can't remember exactly, but I wanna say it could have been 100 dozen arrangements, or was it 50 dozen arrangements? But it was many arrangements of a dozen roses. And then she photoed each of them, and every single arrangement was unique and different. And they delivered them all to the person. I want to say maybe it was for a 50th birthday, so there were 50
wow.
dozens. It was so gorgeous to see how you could do a dozen roses in so many different ways. It was exquisite. And they were all white roses.
Oh, wow.
It was just beautiful.
That's fun.
Yeah, isn't it though? I
Yeah.
thought, oh.
Yeah. Everyone needs that client.
And a vehicle big enough to deliver 50 arrangements.
Well, for that kind of project, rent an extra one, but. Okay, let's see, any questions, you guys, before I look at my notes here?
Yeah, Dennis wanted,
Oh, you have
So
to
many
beg.
questions.
Shay is to be first.
Shay raised your hand, I'm guessing, so go for it.
Is wiring ranunculus common, or is it just because it's bouquet?
So sometimes so the question was, is wiring ranunculus like a common practice, or is it just because it's a bouquet? I guess it does kind of depend on what you're putting it in, but especially in like wedding work, the stems aren't always straight and behaved, and so that allows you to kind of straighten out the stem. But also in like a bridal bouquet, there's going to be like a lot of bouncing and movement, and when they're wired, you can really like bend them to do what you want, and you're not worried about them like snapping when the person who's carrying it's going down the aisle and all that kind of thing. So just gives you a little insurance policy, makes them behave, and lets you manipulate them in other ways too.
I do it in some vase and design arrangements as well, but you are introducing a contaminant, and so it does shorten the life of the bloom. So for everyday work, I avoid it if at all possible. So it's more for event and wedding work, so that it's going to hold the way you want. Teacher Michelle.
So two things. One, the designer with the bazillion roses was Brooke at Raindrops and Roses, and it was 40 dozen white roses and uke.
Okay, yes, now I remember. Yes, it was Brooke, and it was 40 dozen. Okay, I knew it was a lot, and I'm like, oh my gosh. And thank you for sharing all those pictures, because even just getting the pictures took you time, and it just made me so happy to see what you had accomplished. So congratulations, good job. And then Dennis, you said?
Yeah, Dennis had a question, Jerry, about the mascari. How well do those hold up out of water?
Ooh, out of water. I'm not certain I know the answer to that. My feeling is that they would be okay. They're a hollow stem or hollowish, right? So we could wire them. I feel like the top is waxy enough. I'm not sure. We would have to experiment with that a little bit. It's like thinking like, I wonder if he's thinking like a boutonniere or corsage work or something like that.
I think he's thinking about.
Oh, as a handful bouquet?
Sure, because once you deliver, it's never getting in a vase again.
What are you talking about, Michelle?
I don't know. Reality.
Reality. So we deliver in water, and then we also ask the planner to put things in water, in between pictures and things like that. I think it would hold up just fine for as much as we need it to hold up, especially because to us it's available this time of year where it's like cooler. So we know it's not going to be out at a 100-degree wedding. So I think that it would be just fine. If I ever put something in a bouquet that I'm worried about it, I'll be there for, as the pictures start. And then if there's anything that I'm worried about, I'll talk to the planner or the photographer and ask them to pinch for me if anything and I don't want to be high maintenance, but there's sometimes when a client is like, it's the same with the sweet peas though, you know what I mean? The sweet peas are going to fall faster than the mascari. So, so if the bride has it out of water for a long time and something's getting soft, I'll ask things to be just pinched out so they don't have pictures of like something falling out of it. So, and the client doesn't have that either. So, But I think that that's the kind of flower world we work in right now, right? It used to be that like all the flowers were bulletproof and you could deliver without water, but that's not the trending blooms right now.
No, they want the fragile ones
Yeah.
that all of a sudden you
Yeah.
have to pay attention
Yeah,
to.
yeah, I know. I was like, oh, I wanted, this morning at market when I was thinking about this and grabbing things, and I wanted some flyers and some fancy flowers, and it's the same with butterfly ranunculus, right? Like, you're like, oh, like, are you dead or alive, or, but that's
It's
like
just
the
the nature of
line
the
we're
beast.
playing in right
Yeah.
now, so.
True.
Okay, did I find a vase? Did you?
Oh, I moved it right
Oh,
there.
right here, right here.
There you go.
So I think, maybe I'll play with her a little bit, but I think she's just about like
She's
where I want
beautiful.
her. Yeah, she's just a cute little bouquet, but it's this idea that, right, they're out frolicking in a field. They just want something. I love when they say, like, I want my bouquet to be real light. I'm like, do we have to? And that brings up
And would you
actually.
make it pretty?
Yeah, extra pretty, actually, extra pretty, Leanne. The people also, I don't know if anyone else is hearing this, lots of conversations about, I don't want any roses. And I know, and I don't.
So now we're offending the foliage
Yeah.
farmers and the rose
Yeah,
growers.
yeah. Sorry to any farmers that are watching this, but I've been hearing it over and over and over again. And I say, like, what is it that you're thinking? And I think it's like this idea of being overdone. And I think, at least half the clients I can share, like, oh, well, this is what it looks like when it's like open and beautiful, or garden rose, or there's these awesome varieties. And I think that kind of changes their hearts a little bit on roses. They just don't want something that looks like super typical,
Right.
So, and I think roses have a little bit of a reputation. Although it's funny though, because carnations don't seem to be the same bad word that they used to be, so.
I know, everything goes around,
Right.
doesn't it? It's quite amazing.
I can't keep up.
How's Jip faring this year?
Oh, okay, so the trend, so it sounds like, you're always gonna have those clients that are still wanting what they've seen in the years past, and so I think we're still gonna book those like big all Jip weddings, all baby's breath weddings. But I think what we're also gonna see is baby's breath like as an old school accent again. And I think it goes back to like that vintage inspired like looks. And so where I was like, oh, I can only handle it if it's in mass, that's what I want, clouds of baby's breath. But after, there was a lot of clouds of baby's breath this year, so I'm like, well, maybe I don't want that anymore. But it's coming back as like a little bit of a delicate accent, and I think it goes along with that vintage like
Yeah.
idea.
Touches of it.
But I think we're gonna see it, but in like a softer way, less of the mass baby's breath thing, so,
So then Laura had a question.
yeah.
Yes, the real thirsty little blossoms in your bouquet, would you be able to glue in little water tubes
Yeah.
for just a couple, key blossoms?
So you don't have to teach that part.
Really?
All my thunder, no, yeah, so, you can do that so the question was, if you have something that's super thirsty or really needs a water source, can you put it into the bouquet with like a little water tube? And yeah, I'll do that a lot. I'll make the bouquet, it'll be pretty finished out. I actually do that with my anemone because the stems get so smushy and I want to keep them coolered off as long as possible. A million things, I think they're the most honorary flower. But I will glue them in very last minute as we go out the door with a bouquet. The only trick is you have to plan for where those are going to be.
Save a hole.
Yeah, save a hole, so. Okay, so that bouquet was this idea of like, organic and fancy and small, like all those trends that are happening right now. And this other big trend or this like buzzword is this idea of deconstructed. And then also these architectural blooms, right? Like I don't know what you guys are seeing, but so many people are asking about anthurium and amaranthus. The one that had caught me off guard this season was the idea of calla lily. Like,
Callas are getting so hot all of a
I
sudden.
wonder how many requests that we're going to get maybe between this year and next year for just calla lily bouquets. And holy smokes, I hope we don't go back to like the big old calla lily arm bouquets.
But the arm bouquet is coming back too.
I
Did you
can't
just
do
say-
it!
Oh, I know.
It's like the stems like this.
Oh, but I miss America.
No, oh man, I feel like that was like hot when I really started in the wedding world, and oh man, I have nightmares of like ballet tied calla lily bouquets. Anyway, it's so funny what comes back, right? So I'm interested to see how that plays out, but I've already had clients asking me about calla lilies, so I'm like, wow, where did this come from?
So are you seeing the full size or the miniatures?
A little bit of both. Like when I was researching, for this day. Saw a lot of full size, but clients are asking me more about like minis, and it's in combination with other flowers still. But it's not with like other architectural blooms. It's like, it's like calla lilies and dahlias and carnations and roses. Like it's very interesting eclectic combinations, which I think is very much the trend this season.
Yeah, the more the merrier.
Yeah, yeah.
Oh my gosh.
And I'm always like, oh, where are the elements and principles in this? Like, I know, there's somewhere, I just have to find them.
Okay, there's the emphasis, I found it.
Right? So I guess like good for us though, this idea of these deconstructed bouquets, I was like, oh, well, that's such a trend. I really want to make like a monobotanical, kind of this like really simple idea. And then I was like, well, you guys, like, there's nothing to show. You know what I mean? Like, it's just too simple. But I was thinking I couldn't get on here and talk about trends without bringing in some anthurium. And so,
But sometimes the simplest ones are the hardest. Because if you only have 3 blooms.
I know, right?
And one of them is wrong,
I know.
you're 30% wrong.
Well,
So don't screw it up.
I'm wrong.
No pressure.
No pressure. Well, I'm going to pretend like I want everyone to put this and it's going to be super easy. So I'm going with that theory. So.
Okay, well, you do it super easy. Annie or Michelle, what's going on? Anything that we need to know?
They're just, everybody's fascinated. They loved the delicate and soft components of that last one.
Thank you.
And I was trying to scroll for the question, but is that size a bride's bouquet or a maid's bouquet?
I would say with my own clients, it's probably kind of in between. Our signature bouquet is a little bit big, but I actually think that the trend is pushing to this size for a bridesmaid's bouquet. At least that's what it's looking like with all the trend reports. And I would say, you'll have to tell me different areas of the country too, and especially like different areas, but at least in the Northwest, I think we are seeing clients even like asking for smaller bouquets, something more delicate. They don't want to take away from their dress. They don't want it to be like a burden on their wedding day, just a small accessory. So, I would say that this is bridal bouquet size for sure. So, yeah.
So, I kind of already knew that answer, but the next part of the question was... Part two was, are you seeing that not only because they want less to carry, or because you're seeing more ornate dresses? Because I know you have a background in wedding attire.
I always ask my bridal clients if they're wearing a dress, like what it looks like. And so to me, that bouquet would probably go with my client who is having like a winery wedding, has a little bit more of an understated gown. That's the client I'm personally seeing book that more delicate, dancey. They're getting married in wine country, it might be outdoors. My client who has the vintage cake and she has the vintage style dress and it's maybe more of a ballroom affair. That client I feel like is booking some of the, a fuller, maybe a little bit more traditional, not a ton of greenery, but it's definitely a cascade. And lots of cascades still this year. So, but that girl, like my vintage girl, she has to have a cascade, right? I mean, okay, she doesn't, but I feel like they're leaning into that whole idea that goes with that idea so well. So this bouquet is done. No, just teasing.
So if you've got a burning question, we have roughly 10 minutes left with our expert of the day, and the class gets her another couple of days, so, well, that's too bad for you.
Oh, no!
But if you've got a question, type it in there, because in about 10 minutes we'll have to say, see you later, Gator. But then while Jerry's getting this last part done, do we have a yes or no on the Boutonnieres story?
Yeah.
What are they seeing there?
On YouTube, a couple people are mentioning that pocket squares have been popular. But then I have other comments that offset it with they're not as popular because they're more expensive. They do take more product and they're a little more labor intensive.
Mm-hmm.
I saw somebody comment, and I can't find it right at the moment, on Facebook that they're seeing the lapel flowers and the pocket squares more for proms and homecomings, but still the classic boutonniere for nuptials.
Mm-hmm.
We're about half and half over here, and myself personally with my wedding event business,
Mhm.
I'm thinking about half and half.
Half and half,
Yeah.
booking boutonnieres versus no boutonnieres,
Mhm,
yeah.
mhm.
Yeah, more people saying no than I think we've seen for a while, for sure,
So you're being tricky here.
Oh,
and-
I'm just taking a little blue dot and just rolling these just a little bit. Because I feel like, I know we're talking about like monobotanical and just like really simple, but we're still florists, right? We still have to like add a little something. So I thought these tea leaves were really pretty and they picked up some of that pink. And I thought I could create some sort of fun like collar, maybe even asymmetrically. I don't know, I haven't figured it all out yet. But
it's going to be
just
stunning.
like, yeah, it's gonna be, this client's gonna be so happy. But I'm thinking just like something kind of fun to put here down at the base of this. Still working through that, keep talking, no. Okay, but let's see, I wanna make sure I hit at least on my highlighted like things.
So while you're looking at your notes and such, if you are looking to expand your skills and weddings are your thing, now is the time, because come March, you've got to get back into wedding mode, and then come April, you're on, and you've got to hit the ground running. The online Flowers to Carry course goes through so many different types of bouquet mechanics, so that it helps you just go a little bit further into how do you do that. So take a look at that class, the Bouquets to Carry. The one coming up in April, I don't remember exactly, Wedding Trends and Techniques is another class that's pretty fabulous. It'll have some bouquet work, some installation of statement pieces, and so it's kind of just a crossover review of what's on trend. And you actually get to do it rather than just watch Jeri do it. So that's coming up this spring as well.
Okay, so as I'm looking at my notes, I think the things like the overall just like wedding trends that I think are going to affect us as florists that are not necessarily flower related. So as wedding florists, I think we're gonna see like a ton of drape. And so to be able to like, and I know we don't all do drape, I don't do drape, but I think that we wanna know that that is going to be like a big design element, and we're gonna see a lot of it. I think the other thing that's gonna be interesting and will affect us more as florists is the idea of like serpentine tables and caterpillar tables, like where we're kind of, grouping things together or grouping round tables together. But that is an interesting thing to think through as far as, like we have a couple of them that we're kind of thinking through and designing with clients right now. And like, how will you do the flowers and how will they not be in the way? Because the whole like placement of people is very different in those situations. So if you haven't like played with that one at all, like think about it or do a little bit of research. Let's see, we talked about vintage, we talked about a little bit about sustainability. I think that's just like been on topic for the last few years. Asymmetrical designs, cascading elements, anything with like hanging, fabulous cascading elements, I think is super on trend right now. And then the weird one, totally unrelated, but related to our world, I think we as florists maybe need to think about how AI is going to like affect like what our client is seeing and how we respond to that. Because we're seeing a lot of AI generated images, like the client's like, can you make this? And I'm like, no, that's real. Like the Gerber daisies aren't this big, like,
Yeah.
like that's not
It
real.
is interesting. We've even had students submit AI-generated photos. And it's like, no, you didn't do this. This isn't real.
Oh,
And
gosh.
it's kind of fascinating because AI is affecting. And I think
Yeah.
you're going to have clients that come in and say, oh, this is what I want. And you can say, grand, but that's not possible. That is computer generated.
Like, how do we respond to it? I mean, we've all been responding to things like that because, I mean, how many of you see an inspiration picture that's all faux and you're like, it's not real, friend, but you want real? Like, let's talk through that and what I can make for you in real because it's not going to be exactly the same. But I also think we should be, like, a lot of us are small business owners and how are we going to use AI to our advantage too? And like, right now I use it for a lot of my social media posts and, we, want to keep growing and I'm getting old, but my clients are getting younger. So I just want to be able to keep up with them, so.
Well, and it's interesting because it's this new little impact with the AI photos is somewhat similar to when they would bring in filtered photos.
Oh, same,
And
yeah.
the colors-
And you're like, I can't make that.
That's
Yeah.
not a real color, that is a filter.
Yeah.
And so it's similar, just
Yeah.
total, like,
Yeah.
oh, great, okay, how do we address
But
this?
another thing we just need to kind of like know about so we can educate our client and then make sure that what we're making meets their expectations and
Managed expectations.
manage
is so-
expectations. That's a big part of being a wedding designer, isn't it? Woo!
Oh, that's to manage.
Right?
Oh my goodness.
So where are we, do we
So-
have any questions or we run out of time?
We have got 4 minutes.
4 minutes.
So if you've got a question, 4 minutes to spit it out here really quickly. Be sure to look up Bella Bloom Florals.
Thank you.
Check out her website. And then Caledonia and Susie, if you'll put the link in there so they can vote for Portland's best florist, because we want Jeri to win again this year. That was so exciting last
It was
year.
exciting.
I was like, yay! And then if you have not shared this out, please do. Tag a friend, do the thumbs up if you're on YouTube. Help us spread the word and let the world get to know Teacher Jeri, because she is amazing, absolutely gorgeous. And I love this term of deconstructed bouquet.
I know, I love that term too. I saw it in like a handful of places. I'm like, I'm stealing that one. Like, it's just fun. And you know, you're gonna have a client come at you with it and you're gonna be like, what? You know, so I'm like, oh, I know.
I know.
I know. I'm not that old yet.
Well, it makes me think about restaurants where they do deconstructed things where you get a plate with stuff just around, and I'm like, okay, I have to do it myself now. But how cool is
Yeah.
that?
That's when I first saw the term. I was like, so do you like throw it on the table? Like, how's that being presented? So
That's right.
we're not quite there yet. So, well, that would be funny. Here's your bouquet. Now you make it.
You make it.
Yeah, day of wedding activity. Maybe that's the experience that they want. So,
Yeah, right. Oh,
how
pretty
cute is that?
Oh,
Just needs a little ribbon,
oh,
a
that
little
is
rabbit
great.
ears, but
So you've got 2 totally different looks here, which is fascinating. And I think that both would work depending on the client. I mean, I can see someone wanting something just sophisticated.
so
And
urban
simple.
Portland.
Yeah, I can.
Oh, you know what we didn't talk about?
Uh-oh, what do we not?
We didn't talk about colors at all. But
Okay.
we're running out of
Well,
time.
you get 1 minute.
But anyway, we were
It's 1 minute.
one minute. We were so over and over, and Liam and I were talking about this. We both saw it pop up when we were kind of like peeking around and keeping our eye out for trends. But this idea of red. So I thought if we wanted to really make this like trendy, we could throw some like crazy red in here somewhere. I don't know where she goes now, but anyway, I was just opening this carnation and pulling out the center because you know we have to, the florist, we have to
You always
mess
have
with
to
everything.
manipulate it.
Yeah, but anyway, but we were playing so we could, like, then this is the idea, right, with like the kind of interesting flower combinations with the carnations and the anthurium and you know, all sorts of unexpected groupings that used to be against the rules.
And
So-
now all of a sudden, the bolder the better.
Right, well, yeah, absolutely. So anyway, that's just something we almost forgot.
I know, well, I'm glad you remembered. So Jeri, I just want to thank you so much for putting all this effort, to being at the market this morning at 6:30 in the morning.
My
to
pleasure.
gather these things,
Yeah.
and then coming in to share your expertise. We appreciate it
Yeah,
so
thanks for
much.
having me, and this keeps me up to date too.
I know, of course, this is all the upper game.
Right?
And the students will get you next week again, so
Yeah.
that's gonna be grand fun. And then you can watch it on replay if you wanna catch up with, maybe you missed something, maybe you had to go get a glass of wine or cook the kids dinner or whatever, so replay is there. If you haven't shared this yet, please do. And then come join us for Flower School, online with the wedding advanced classes, in person with wedding trends and techniques, or in March for the full basic course. We'll be here. Will you be? But for now, it's time for us to get out there and go do something we love.
Yeah.
Bye, you all.
Bye, thanks.